Welcome to another show of Hutch on Hunting. I'm your host, Bruce Hutchin from Colorado Springs, and we just had some snow last night. And I've got Ryan Tervort on, and he is the host of The Legacy. And he's from Kiowa, Colorado. So it's really nice to have a local guy on the show rather than going all around the country, out of the country, wherever. So, Ryan, welcome to the show this morning. And let's kick it right off because I knew you just kicked off The Legacy.
Yep, and I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I've been doing this for a while. I've been part of some other shows and had a partner that I was doing some other stuff with, and just found out that he wasn't representing hunting the way I wanted to see it represented. So this last couple of weeks, me and the staff broke away, talked to our sponsors that we had, brought them with us, and actually just literally 2 days ago, we did the official launch on Facebook of the Legacy. And what we're doing with the legacy is we want to share the legacy of the hunter with the next generation. It's for all that want to get out there, but our big thing for us is getting youth involved, getting them out there, showing them what it is to be a part of the true legacy of a hunter.
Now, where did this desire come from? Did you come from a hunting family or,
I
you know,
did. Yeah, I've been part of hunting. I've been out hunting since I was probably 3, 4 years old. My boys, they started about the same age, and it's just been something built and it was just part of what we did. It wasn't something that was a hobby or anything. It was just our life and what we did every fall, every hunting season we were out. When I got to be older, I started as a guide in Iowa when I lived there for a while. Got to meet some of the people in the industry, and realized that this is what I wanted to do. This is part of who I am. And it was more for me. It was more than just going out, killing something and hunting. It was wanting to the camaraderie, wanting to learn, wanting to teach others what I knew and my knowledge about what I had learned being in the field.
so we both know you can go to YouTube and put hunting channels, and there's literally thousands of them, not even hundreds anymore, it's thousands. So what's so
Yeah.
special about The Legacy?
Well, it's because it's our message. Like I said, it's not about just us going out and, oh, hey, we're going to go do this and kill a big bull or kill a big buck. It's about teaching and being able to share our knowledge we have instead of just, yeah, we did this and we did that, to actually wanting to get others. So our mission is to get youth. We also do a lot of stuff with veterans, and getting them out, getting them a chance to experience the outdoors, and maybe those that never had a chance to even be out there. I've had a few of those that I reached out to, use my contacts and land that I have access to be able to get them out and experience a hunt that they normally wouldn't have had. And I know that's kind of what we want to share with everyone is, the legacy is for everyone. And, this idea that now it's become you takes a ton of money to do all this and that. And I mean, yeah, sure, you want to go on these big trophy hunts, that's what it takes. But there are still opportunity for us to go out and learn and do this without having to spend thousands and thousands of dollars. You just need to be out there, and it's not so much about the kill, but about the experience and the knowledge gained with each hunt you're on.
Let's talk about what it really takes to do a DIY. We're talking DIY, public land hunt. What is it? What does it take to do that?
Dedication, patience, and being able to just read the sign. There's a lot of times, you may not have the elk or turkeys or whatever, may not be as vocal in some areas because of pressure, but it's, spending time there, moving slow, watching what they're doing, watching the sign that you could see and learning what they're doing, and then being able to drop into those little tiny spaces where other people are avoiding and the animals are in there doing their thing just like they always do. They know those spots, they can get away from everyone. And then so you got to be willing to drop in, go high, go back in, drop into those holes, and you can have a great experience. I've done it where nothing going on at all. Talk to guys, no one's hearing a single bugle, and drop into a little tiny hole where it's literally almost a mile straight down in, and get on 3 or 4 bulls that are just screaming and tearing it up.
Now, how small are those honey holes? I call them honey holes. How small are the honey holes that you're hunting now?
Some of them, like literally a few hundred yards, like the one in this canyon basin, there was It was only maybe 100 yards across and 200 or 300 yards long down in the bottom. And down in there was a meadow, there was water, there was a piece of dark timber, and then there was at the very very bottom back of it there was some private ground, and that was their escape route. And you just could slip in there between them and the private, and like I said, it was an area that literally once you go down on the bottom, you could see the entire everything. And those little tiny holes are the ones that will hold the elk because no one's, it's way down in there. They're like, oh, that isn't much there. You can literally from the top, you could see clear across it, but you can't see into the bottom.
Huh. So you have to be, I guess, not I guess, tactically um, very intimate with your hunting area.
Yeah.
And you can't really do that. I do a lot of digital scouting for people, Hutch, at my clients at Hutch on Hunting, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
show them on a broad scale because I have some places in units I don't have any pins at all. In other units I have a lot of pins, and they said, "Well, how come there's no pins there?" I said, "Because I hunt there."
Yeah.
They go, "Well, I want to know." I said, "Yeah, I'll tell you generally, you go here, you go on the Forest Service Road 27, you go up Huntsman's Ridge Road, and you know, that's where you're going to hunt. I'm not
Yeah.
going to, tell you how to hunt. I'm not an outfitter. I'm a digital scouter. I'll tell you where to go, how to do it, but specific hunting holes, um, I'm not going to tell you.
Right.
And, I'm not going to show you the pins because that's part of being there. I'm telling you where to go and you figure it out and I'll save you time. There's no question about it. That's what you're paying me the services for. But, people say, well, I want what tree, what saddle do I sit on? What spring do I sit on? I was like, you're going to have to figure that out, because, you know, I have a lot of good relationships in some of these units, and those people know that I know. And if all of a sudden 3 people from Iowa show up, they're going to know where it came from.
Yep. Well, that's kind of where I used to hunt down by Pagosa. We had the spot I called it the wall. And it's this huge rock wall, and you could see it from the road in that, but it's miles back in, and it's really hard. There's a trail that goes up through, but you got to know where to break off because there's only really one way you can get into it because there's private ground down in the bottom, and otherwise it's just steep and gnarly. And I killed several elk at the base of that. And it used to be great, except for there was a couple people in there, and they wanted to know how to get over there, and none of us would tell them. Well, finally, someone decided to go ahead because they got tired of getting bugged. And they told them where it was. Well, next thing you know, that now they're telling their friends, and five, six
Yeah,
people in there, and pretty soon now the elk won't come off the private to come up into there.
no. And I made that mistake a long time ago. I used to hunt Alpine Plateau, and I brought a friend, and that was in. It
Yep.
was over. And so it's just, and folks, here's Hutch's tip number one for this show. If somebody takes you in to a place or a trout stream, or where birds are, if they take you into their place and share that with you, you're obligated not to bring your buddies back,
Yeah.
not to bring anybody back, not to go on, social media and say, "Oh, look at this trout I caught on XYZ Creek," and yada 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 yada. Don't do that. One, it'll ruin relationships. Two, it'll make you, or in my case, me, I won't do that again. I've tried it a
Yep.
couple of different times and not had good results. There was one place up in Wyoming. I had a great result. I told one of my fraternity brothers from college, which was a long time ago, I said, "Hey, you can bring one person with you. You can bring your brother-in-law and go up there, and in 3 days, you're going to shoot antelope. There's no question about it." And I made it happen. And every year he sent me a little note, sent me a picture. "Hey, here's the goats we got. Had a great time. Thanks so much." Yada, yada, yada. And so that was a good relationship. And while I'm on it, the relationships you build with ranchers farmers. I've got a farm in Wisconsin. This will be the 57th year I've hunted that farm.
Yep.
That's long-term relationships. And folks, you do that one visit at a time, one phone call at a time, one case of beer at a time, one apple pie at a time, one box of apples at a time. It's just not, hey, can I hunt your land? No. If somebody came up to me and if I had a ranch, I go, no. Come in, sit down, and we'll talk about it. We'll have a visit, and then I'll make a decision if you're the type of person I want on my land. And we've lost that capability of doing that. Your thoughts on that, Ryan?
No, we really have. So there's a lot of stuff that I have exclusive access to. When I lived in Iowa, there was farms that I was the only one allowed to hunt. Even when I moved away and came back, I could still always hunt. One of them was literally our neighbor. They didn't really allow anybody to hunt, but they had a trash incident where trash blew out of the burn barrel and almost caught their entire cornfield. I ran down there on my four-wheeler and helped them get it put out, and that was what it took. We built a relationship, and even when I'd come back, he's like, nope, you have full access to anything you want, do whatever you want. And it's it's a mutual respect. It's like when I guided there, that's kind of why I quit. Is the guy I was working for, he didn't understand that. He had tons of money and thought, oh, I'm throwing money at these farmers, they should just be happy and let me have their ground. And some of these were generations that they'd owned this ground. They didn't care about his money. Sure, they'll take it, but it was about the respect and that. And so I was always having to fix, because he'd make them mad and I'd have to go in and fix it, get everybody calmed down. And finally I just told him, I said, I'm tired of doing this. You're not running this right. I was actually working with the Drurys back when they first started, and we were going to do a deal and get everything integrated. He didn't want to do that. And I said, if you're going to run stuff like this, you're going to run it into the ground. And that was when I ended up quitting. And within a couple of years, we went from 50,000 acres over 5 counties to he had the 3,000 acres he owned, and that was it.
And folks, it's just about relationships.
Yep.
It's that simple, but it's hard because we learn. I've taught my boys how to do it, and hopefully hutching hunting will help, will help people think about, because hunting, even DIY hunting, coming out to Colorado, you're going to spend upwards to $3,000. Colorado right now, $803 for a bull or a cow tag. No difference. That's $800. Plus you come from Iowa, you got a couple $100 of gas. Okay, you're at $1,000. Plus now you got food. So then, a couple people, you get another couple $100 each. So now you're up to $1,400-$1,500. Then you got to process your elk, unless you can do it yourself, which I recommend.
Yeah.
And if you want to increase your odds, you pay either for a drop camp. You're still doing it DIY, but you get a drop camp to somebody to set you up, or you pay a trespass fee, or you just go fight the masses with everybody else. So can you do it for less than 2,000? Yes. But if you put the odds in your favor, you're going to be from $2,000 to $3,000. Your thoughts on that? Is that fair?
No, that's pretty fair. I mean, obviously it could go up from there, but yeah. And then spending time, a lot of times if people ask me, I said, what, your first year, don't expect to kill anything. Go in and learn an area. Pick an area you're going to based on your e-scouting and everything, and then go in and spend that first year. You might get lucky and get one, but spend it looking, learning the area, knowing where to find the elk, knowing what their patterns are in that area. And that way, then the next year, then you know where to concentrate on, and your odds of getting one go astronomically up.
And they do. And the odds in Colorado, I believe, for archery, it's less than 10%, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like 5 to, depending on the unit, I think it's 2 to 5% is average.
That's average, folks, for archery elk at the best time of the year where you can hear them.
It's like 5. I've had a bull within less than 40 yards every year other than this last one because I spent my time, like I said, I was taking some veterans that I was working with, Wounded Warriors, Wisconsin. I had them come out, and you know, I obviously I'm not a guide, so I don't charge anything, but I will lend my knowledge. That's kind of what I lend my knowledge of the areas because they'd never been here. They were from Wisconsin and took them out. And, so I spent my time trying to get them on elk. So I didn't get a chance at one this year. But before then, the years of hunting, I've had a bull with less than 40 yards every year, but haven't actually killed one for a few years. Just like the year before last, I had one 18 yards. When I released my arrow, he jerked his head, and actually his right beam took my arrow out of the air just before it hit him.
And folk, there's stories, and I could go for days because I've been fortunate to be hunting, archery hunting in Colorado for a long time. And the stories don't end where you got bulls on the other side of a tree or a bush, pinyon or whatever, and you can't get a shot.
Yep.
And they just know instinctively that they're not going to come out, expose their shoulder, and they just turn around and walk away, bugling in your
Yep.
face, in your face. And it's like, ah.
Yeah, I had that happen a few times. The one year I ended up shooting a smaller bull. I had a great big one I was after, and same thing. Yeah, he just stood behind a tree and just spun back and forth, bugling, wouldn't give me a shot. And finally, this smaller bull came in and actually bedded at 50 yards and was looking at the big bull and looking over towards me, calling, looked back at the big bull. And finally, I was like, you know what? Shot him in his bed. I'm like, I don't, the big bull, yeah, I wanted him. But I'm like, you know what? This one's here, perfect shot, took him.
And folks, that's part of the hunting when we're sitting around the campfire and we're telling stories, or we're sitting around the kitchen table, tailgate of the truck or whatever, and we're just telling stories about, man, remember when we were up Buck Wild Basin and that bull came in, we couldn't get it, or the snow came in September. That was crazy. The stories don't end. And I've lived long enough that I've got a lot of them.
Yep.
But that's part of the adventure. You were saying earlier, that's part of the legacy of hunting because if you
It
hunt
is.
with a
Yep.
rifle, okay, rifle hunting for elk, in my estimation, is easy once you find where the elk are.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like this last year, my son he got an elk this year. We were in rifle hunting, and we knew the elk were in there having little. Everybody was seeing them a little bit, having trouble. So we just climbed to the top of a knife ridge and sat there all day, glassed in every direction we could. Spotted the herd going into a little basin and bed. Once they bedded, we took off after them, got up under them, got right in on them, like 300 yards, and we were trying to get the other kid. I was hunting with some youth, and we are trying to get a shot for one of the other youths on a bull and trying to get them to tag team. But unfortunately, some other hunters came across another ridge, and the elk spotted them, got nervous, and we just couldn't get a bull to come clear of all the cows. So I ended up, I was like, all right, we're going to lose them. Told my son, go ahead and take your cow, and able to take the shot.
And that happens. I mean, so you got to be flexible and adaptable. That's one thing, I had a guy I was talking to about hunting the oak brush. And I said, well, what's your best technique? Because I got some friends that want to come out, from Wisconsin, and I haven't hunted oak brush. And he says, well, it's easy. You have to get above them. You have to look down in that stuff, and it's a jungle, and it's tough. And, that's all. And I said, well,
Yep.
that sounds like whitetail hunting. And when the whitetails are all in the thorns and all the brush and everything, you can't see them. They're laying there. They're there, but
Yep.
there's no way you can see them. So how do you hunt them? He says, I don't know what to tell you. He got frustrated actually. And he says, it's just, you have to be there. You have to experience it. And as soon as he said, you have to experience it, I said, oh, to myself, because it's so hard, folks, when you come out to the West, that it's a completely different environment. If you look right behind Ryan, that's a basin in Colorado sitting, what, 12,000 feet?
Yeah, 12-1. Yeah.
And so, in your estimation, could elk be in that dark timber behind you?
Oh, absolutely. And I guarantee that they're part of the time they're coming in their feet, they're watering at that lake and bedding around it. Yeah.
And so that's 12,000 feet. You can see you're above timberline because there's no trees up in those ridges. And that's what it takes to, and Ryan said it earlier, if you're coming from out of state, invest the first year in figuring out where the elk are, what their habits are, where they bed, where they water, and where they feed, where they waddle, and figure it out. And take a map, make notes, take a journal, take your GPS and all the electronic advantages we have now. I started off with topo maps. And so
Yep.
I have topo maps in my closet behind us. I have literally over 100 topo maps for Colorado because that's how much I hunted. And I got X's and O's and my own, you know, my own marks that will tell me what's there, what's not there. You know, some of them of those places now are developments up in the mountains.
Oh yeah, I know. There's some places, yeah, you like literally where you used to hunt. Now there's houses and stuff there, and I used to do the same thing with topo maps and that stuff. Now, of course, with electronics, I use my Onyx, and it has the topo feature you could turn on it, and that's how I do my scouting. And then I drop pins on areas I want to go into, or once I'm in there, I find something that I'm like, hey, this is drop a pin there. So technology's definitely made it a lot easier. Yeah, back in the day, yeah, it was you had everything on paper and you were making X's and marks and then figuring out what it took to get there on foot because you really didn't have a way to be able to mark it and have something to go to because you had no way to drop a pre-pin. You had to go in there and then you could drop something on your GPS, but that was it.
GPS didn't exist, so I figured out because I really did well with contours with topographic maps. Actually, I
Yep.
took a course and it mapped some landforms in college and was my only 5 credit A in college. But I knew how to do it. And so it was easy for me because I knew what it represented. And, I think people have lost that skill set because they're
Yeah.
going to Onyx, they're going to Google Earth, and I use them all, folks. If you hire Hutch on Hunting, I will use them all. It was on a guy with Dallas yesterday, and I had the Colorado Hunting Atlas, I had Onyx Maps, and I had Google Maps all up on the screen. And I was showing him, okay, here's what you need to think about. That's why I was talking about Huntsman's Ridge and Fire Service 27 or County Road 27. Um, and he's going, okay, I can see that. And so again, I help people get to where the elk are going to be.
Yep.
That's
Another big part of it is being respectful to our fellow hunters. That's one I've just seen it more and more that a lot of people are, we've got this mentality of, oh, it's public land, I can do whatever. But when you are being disrespectful to other hunters and you're messing up their hunt, you're actually putting a black mark on that. And that's what we talk about with why we wanted to do this as the legacy. That's a black mark on the legacy of the hunter, and that's something that we don't like to see. I've had it done to me this last year when I was hunting with the veterans. It was really awesome for me. I had one guy, like I said, he'd never been out here, and I had this bull coming in bugling, watching him trying to knock an arrow, and he's shaking so bad he about flung the arrow out of his hand. So it was like he had an awesome experience because, folks, if you haven't ever had that of having a bull coming in bugling, that is experience you'll never forget. And so, like, he loved it. He had that, but unfortunately, we'd met some other guys earlier. We told them where we were going. They said, okay, we'll make sure we stay away from you. Well, as soon as we had this bull lit up and going, they tried to sneak in on us. And when the bull came to circle around us to come in, they tried to move in between and ended up bumping him and messing up the hunt. And, it's like, what happens by accident, that's one thing. So, but when you purposely go in and mess up, that's really is something that's unfortunately become a sad proposition to happen on public land anymore. Like I had one a few years ago when I was hunting down by Pagosa, heading up. There's a place called Poison Park, and I was going up early, but some guys from Wisconsin had gotten in there first, and I noticed they were there, and I lit a bull up. So I made my way over to them, and they're like, yeah, we can't get him to move. I said, well, he's responding to me. They're like, yeah, every time you call, he responds. I said, okay, well, you all set up right here and get ready. I'm going to cut through you guys, go up this next little ridge, and I'm going to cow call and bugle back. He's going to think a bull came through here, stole his cows, and he's going to come off that ridge like a freight train. You sure? I'm like, just be ready. Sure, I went through him, lit up, and I heard that bull come off that ridge, just breaking limbs and everything. And I'm like, all right, good. Then I went on my hunt that night, that afternoon. I came back down to camp, went over that. So I was like, hey, did anybody get a shot at that bull? And they all started laughing. They're like, no, we about crapped ourselves. He goes, we didn't realize how serious you were when you said that bull was coming off there like that. He goes, that bull came out and there was limbs breaking. He stopped in the middle of us, less than 10 yards, snot flying everywhere. And all of us just stood there and looked at each other. We didn't know what to do.
And folks, that's the adventure. That's the experience. Those guys from Wisconsin will never forget that.
Yeah.
You know, and that's
I could have been the bad guy and ignored them because they didn't know I was there. I could have snuck up around and got between them bull and tried to kill that bull, but that wasn't the right thing, and that's not who I am. And like I said, that's what we want to portray with this show we're doing with the legacy, is that they were there on that meadow first. They were calling to that, trying to call to that bull, and he wasn't responding to them. So I felt my responsibility as a hunter and showing my integrity was to let them have him and try and help them have a better chance at him. And, like I said, yeah, that experience they had, that bull at less than 10 yards, it's not flinging everywhere. None of those guys will ever forget that, even though they never got a shot.
and his eyes are just red. You think it's the
Oh, yeah.
demon. It's a
Well, that's
demon.
what one guy said. He goes, I was staring right at him, and he goes, I didn't know if I should try to shoot or turn and run.
But the other thing is, Ryan knows elk, obviously, because he knew the behavior, what that bull was going to do.
Yeah.
He slipped in there quietly, talked to the guys, and said, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to go away from him, cow calling, bugling. So that bull is going to think exactly what happened. One, another bull came in, took the cow, which were there. The other hunters just didn't know they were there, but that's why the bull was there, because the cows are there someplace. And that's what it takes to be a successful elk hunter.
Yep.
You can shoot all day long. I know guys are shooting 100 yards with their compounds. I shoot an Excalibur 380 feet per second. And if I wanted to, I could shoot 100 yards with my broadheads. But my personal limit with my crossbow is 60 yards. And that's not offhand. That's set up. And yes, I have a bipod. So, but I'm also a disabled veteran, and I have two pins in my right shoulder, and I can't even pull back a 40-pound bow. So Colorado allows me to use a crossbow because I'm handicapped.
Yeah.
I'm disadvantaged. But I also set my own limits and know, okay, if he comes in that circle and I got a good shot, open shot, I'll do it. Like whitetails, I only shoot at 30 yards. Why? Because that's the only distance I ever get. Unless they're in the alfalfa or going in or coming out of the corn, then that could be a different story. But typically in the woods, 30 yards is 100 yards outside. I mean, it's just, and whitetails, I've had whitetails as close as the end of my boots when I'm sitting on the ground because I can't get up in the air anymore. And just that is alone is exceptional because I'll come out of the woods and the farmer will go, well, how did you do today, Hutch? I said, you won't believe it. They were rutting and I was on the bench and they came by and they were chasing and all this stuff. It's a circus. And sometimes I wish I had the film because people would say, no way. And I had those two bucks. There was a 6-pointer and 8-pointer, and the 8-pointer was chasing the 6-pointer away from the doe, and it came right at me. And I'm sitting with my back against an oak tree. And later it was 3 feet off my feet. And I didn't shoot either one. I didn't want to shoot at either one. But it was just being there and seeing that, so that I could share that memory today. with hundreds of people or thousands of people who are going to hear my
Yep.
voice, they're going to go, dang, does that really happen? I'm going to go, yeah, it really happens. And just like your
Yeah, I
story
shot my
about
first.
that,
Yep. Yeah, my first elk with a bow, I killed it at 3 steps.
three
There was no,
steps.
yeah, there was no putting a pin on it. It was just point the arrow and let it fly.
Now, how did you call in an elk to 3 steps? I mean, that's 5 feet,
So what we
I
did
mean,
is,
5 yards or whatever.
yeah, it was actually less than 5 yards. Yeah, I mean, it was about my steps were about a yard, so it's about 3 yards. But a buddy of mine, we were in camp and we were headed to town that night, and we spotted a big bull and a group of cows on the private ground, but we knew the public was just 100 yards from where they were. So the next morning, we got up early and cut up around, and cut across through there and cut their tracks and followed them up the mountain. I mean, it took us most of the day following them. We'd follow where their beds were. Finally, we got up to that spot that I called the wall, and that's where they were heading. And we actually ended up bumping them, but they didn't know what we were. So I told my buddy, I was like, "You go low, I'm going to go high, and we're going to do cow calls to each other, and see if we can't pull them back." And sure enough, we called in two, and he missed his, unfortunately, but mine, like, he came off the ridge and was coming at me, and I just froze, drew my bow, and just sat there at full draw, just inching to the side as he came around. And finally, like, okay, you gotta stop, you gotta stop. And then finally I did. I'm just, don't, let it fly. And he went less than 20 yards and piled up, but he never knew I was there, because once I saw him coming and he was at a trot, I just stopped calling, drew my bow, and just stood there and just was inching to the side, following him as he came.
And those are the stories that I want everybody hearing my voice to have.
Yeah.
Yes, Colorado has a lot of, you know, management, I'll just say it, management issues with Proposition 91 that's going to ban or choosing to ban by voter the right to hunt cats, mountain lions, and bobcats. And we're fighting it. Dan
Yeah.
Gates is doing a great job with Save the Hunt Colorado. And he's doing a great job doing it. But we need everybody to help because Colorado is the epicenter of the radical agenda to end hunting in America.
It
If this
really is. Yeah.
if this passes here, if they pass it by ballot, not science, folks, not the North American model of wildlife conservation, but if this passes here, they'll have the blueprint to go to any other state they choose.
Yep. And it's really unfortunate. The platform they're going on is the trophy hunting, which isn't even allowed for cats in Colorado. Mountain lions, they are parks and wildlife. They consider them the same as an elk and a deer. You have to harvest all edible portions of meat off that animal. It isn't about just taking a trophy. You get caught doing that, and it's the same as if you were to do it to an elk. So the platform they're trying to use is, what's sad is that it's actually that's gaining ground when it's actually a lie.
Yes, it is. And for voters along the Front Range who do not hunt, have never hunted, have never seen a cougar or a bobcat, and forget about lynx because you can't hunt them anyway. They're
Right.
endangered species. I don't know why that's on the ballot, but you can't
Yeah,
do it
yeah, they're
anyway.
already protected. Yeah.
Yeah, they're already protected. But so we need all your help. So save the hunt colorado.com. Send $1. Doesn't matter. Because if we lose here in Colorado, your state's next.
Yeah, it's going to start a wave, because, like I said, if they can win this on an absolute lie, when, like I said, we already have the laws in place that this ballot number is using to try and ban the hunt. The laws to protect it are already in place, and if they're going to allow that to go through when we already have that, yeah, there's no limit to where they'll go next.
And the way I had Dan on the show, the way Dan read the law to me, all they have to do to continue here in Colorado is say, take out mountain lions and put in elk, take out bobcats and put in mule deer, take
Yep.
out lynx and put in antelope. That's all. Three
Yeah.
words. And they can run it because they know that the voters will be ignorant. I'm going to say stupid because they're not thinking of the science and letting the Colorado Parks and Wildlife, who do a great job at
Yep.
managing the herd, the species. And we have to let the professionals do their job, not the voters. And we
Yep.
ran into the same thing with the wolves. We got them reintroduced by a very slim margin. And it was the voters who decided this is what we're going to do. And now we got to pay for it. And who's
Yep.
paying for it? The hunters.
And it's sad, because Parks and Wildlife, I know they're kind of regretting their decision for so long of wanting to not recognize that wolves were here. I realize why they did it, because they didn't want the red tape, and I get that. But now that's what they tried to do, is that time frame they had before they had to do it. That's what they were doing during that time, was gathering that info that everybody had, that the wolves were already here. But unfortunately, the wolf interest groups got involved and pressed the point and threatened to have it take the power away from our Parks and Wildlife. So they gave in, and instead of us having hundreds of wolves, at least we're only going to have a few, but those are going to reproduce. But if they hadn't bent the knee a little bit on that, the special interest wanted to reintroduce hundreds. And it's like, we've had wolves. In fact, Colorado, I feel, is one of the few states that still has some natives. I mean, back in 04, hunting down by Pagosa, I heard their howls, found their tracks. Like, they were been here and the Parks and Wildlife has documented that they've been here for 20 years, all over the state. But because people don't see them, they think, oh no, that's a lie. They're not here.
Well, folks, here's a statement I'll make. In 10 years with the wolves, if we don't manage them, allow the management of wolves, the over-the-counter tags for elk will be gone. You'll have limited hunting opportunities, which will put more people in less land, which is going to ruin the experience that Ryan and I have been talking about. Because hunting is an experience. I've been fortunate to travel all over North America. And the best part of the hunts are sitting in these tent camps and wall tents and campfires and coffee houses and airports, talking with people from all over the country about their hunt, where they're going, who they're hunting with, what they're hunting, how they did, blah, blah, blah. And then you talk to the people who actually live there, the Inuits and the First Nation people up in Canada, and you're actually communicating with those people and listening to them.
Yep. And then, that's why with this new show and venture I'm doing, that's why we went with the legacy, because all that is all sharing the legacy of the hunter, going back generations. And then that's something that we want to see protected and we want to see passed on the way it has been. Obviously there's new technologies and things change, but the experience of it doesn't. And that's what we are trying to protect with this.
And saying that, let's go do something. Let's share the screen because I'm going to show these people, because this podcast will be up on YouTube soon. So the legacy, is that the name?
Yep. Yeah. Our website's coming, and everything. It'll have all our links on it. I have actually being built right now. I've been talking with my person that's building that for me. So
It's not up.
No, our website is not launched yet. Only thing we have launched right now is our Facebook.
Okay.
Because like I said, the webpage, I have Faith Janik. She's a great person in the industry. She's does all stuff for all kinds of stuff through the industry.
Yeah, she's an amazing lady.
Yep, she
Faith
is.
is an amazing lady.
She really is. That's who's actually building our website for us right now. I was actually talking to her this morning, getting our staff and our sponsor stuff over to her so she can have the links for all that on there.
Okay,
but right now, like I said, we have it. I just launched it on Facebook, and then our YouTube channel is created, and we have a bunch of videos and stuff we're going to be coming up on there shortly to get all our content out on there. But like I said, yeah, right now it's only on Facebook, but the website is coming.
Right. And I'm sorry I took that little detour and
That's okay.
in the in the pre-show and the warm-up, we didn't talk about if the website was up or not, but you can
Not
go
quite yet.
to you can go to the Legacy on Facebook.com, and you'll be able to you know start following them, see what they're doing, and tracking what Ryan and his crew are doing. So here we are. Why don't you share one of your most memorable hunts? We told some stories already, but what's one of your memorable hunts here in Colorado?
One of my most memorable here in Colorado is actually probably going to be um, the one last year when I had that bull that I actually didn't get. Last the not this last fall, but the fall before, so 2022. Bulls were, everyone was only hearing bulls during the dark time, but I was able to get back into the pockets and got on some elk, and I was way on top and had a couple bulls answer me from clear in the bottom. So I had to basically sit down and scoot to get down off, get down into there, and got set up. And I'm bugling to one bull and talking to him, and all of a sudden I hear something. I hear a real light bugle to my right. Look over, and here's this nice 6x6 coming in slow, and he's doing the just, and I'm like, okay, so I'm like scooting myself around, get all set up. Worked him for 20, 30 minutes, finally got him in, and he comes into 18 yards and was raking a tree and spins himself perfectly broadside. And I'm thinking, oh, here we go. He has no idea I'm here, and I'm gonna be able to stick this bull. Come to full draw, put it on him, release the arrow, and all I hear is crack. And he spins, runs 20, 30 yards, stands there. And I'm trying to think there's nothing between us. And then I see him shaking his head and shaking his head. And I can see my arrow stuck in a tree. And just as I released the arrow, he literally, because he had his head down raking that bush, he jerked his head up and his right beam literally hit my arrow at the broadhead right before it struck him, and it just glanced off his rack and stuck in a tree over his back. And I was like, what are the odds of that?
They're
Like
not.
literally to have that jerk his head at the split second to take that arrow out like that. And then I'm just sitting there, I'm just staring. I'm like, oh, trying to get another shot at him. Of course, he was all, and he took off down back down to the bottom. But it's like something like that, an experience like that, to have call that bull in, he's drooling everywhere and come in that close, and have it be so perfect, it's still have it not happen.
And folks, that happens hundreds of times every single year when you're bow hunting. You're up close and personal with a bull elk because it's just the magic of the moment. I'll just put it that way. The magic of the moment. And it's such a fine line to be able to finally do everything ever comes together and you stick your bull.
Yep.
And with your arrow. And I can remember, my first bull ever with a bow, and it was easy. I mean, he came, I'm underneath, I'm in cover. I got a clear shooting lane. He just comes out looking for the other bull, the cows. He's looking around. He's looking up to his left. That exposes his shoulder perfectly, and I shot him 30 yards, 32 yards, whatever it was, and he runs off. I bugle. I hear him go down. I go get my buddies. We come out. We pack him out. I go, well, what's so hard about this?
I was like, yeah. Well, my biggest bull was I was actually still mule deer hunting. I had a tag for both, and the elk were kind of talking, but it had been warm. But I hadn't gone up high looking for them yet. But I had one bull that would answer me all the time from up above, actually above our camp. And what it was is he was a big mature bull, but he was not big rack. So he was coming down at night and stealing cows from the big bulls on the private property and going back up. And a couple days into the hunt, finally it cooled. It got real warm, and the two big bulls on the private decided to go out the other side to get up higher ground, and that made him feel comfortable. And he had come down. And I was in the evening. I was mule deer hunting, walking my little trail that I always took, my little route. I'd shot a grouse, and I was actually carrying it in my hand. And I come up around a corner, and I hear just real soft bugle, And I'm like, I look over and I could just barely see him. And I gave him 2 cow calls, and he steps over the hill broadside at 54 yards and dropped the grouse, came to full draw and shot. And I was pretty sure I hit him, but I wasn't sure. And he just whirled, took off. And then I could hear his cow's alarm barking. And I'm like, okay, so I think I hit him. I go over there and I'm looking for blood, looking for blood. I see one spot of blood on the ground. I'm like, sweet, yep, okay, I know, I put it right where I wanted to. And I literally picked my head up and look, and he was actually laying 15 yards from me, dead. He just had, it was the way it was thick. He just, from where I was standing, he whirled out of sight so fast that I didn't see him. And the one from right there, he's laying 15 yards piled up.
And sometimes, folks, that's how easy it will be when you do your job right. And other times it's a complete nightmare because you hit them high. One of the bulls I shot in New Mexico, 40 yards, I just hit him high. And we didn't find him.
I got too close. I was doing some broadhead testing for a company, and that's why I don't shoot mechanicals anymore. It was actually from that hunt. But I got too close to the shoulder and only got one lung. And one lung on a bull is where the nightmare begins. But I knew I only had one lung the second I hit him, so I didn't give him much time at all and got right on him and followed him into thick stuff and just watched. And the second he bedded down, I moved in on him. As soon as he stood up, put another one through him and ended it. But that's out. That one lung on a bull, that's where the nightmare begins.
Yeah, because they're resilient people, I mean, species. And I would put elk right up, and I haven't hunted Africa, but my friends who hunt Africa say the animals there are tenacious, especially if you're hunting with a bow.
Yeah.
They're just,
Well, their vitals are different, actually shaped different than our animals over here. Like, well, as a perfect shot on them would actually be a little bit forward on animals over here. Like if you hit one that, 6 inches behind the shoulder over there, you're in trouble because you're barely clipping the back of the lungs.
And that's just how they're built.
Yeah.
So, and, I talk to my friends all the time, my whitetail friends, and every year I sent them an illustration about, where to hunt deer because unfortunately, from the air, when you're shooting down 20 yards, 30 yards, whatever, the angle has a tremendous impact on the vitals. And if you're not zeroed in on that and practicing, here's Hutch's tip number 2. If you're a bow hunter and you're up in the air, practice shooting at angles 10 yards, 20 yards, 30 yards from your tree stand. You got to do that because
It's
if you
not
don't,
about the impact, it's that exit. You gotta, and that's what a lot of people don't know is they think about where the arrow's hitting, but when you're talking those angles and that, it is about where that arrow is exiting.
right? And you can shoot and think you got a great double lung hit and you don't. You only get one lung at an angle.
Yep. Yeah.
And that causes problems.
And some people coming from Midwest, if they're used to hunting from a tree stand, they come out here, they get messed up because the angles are different. So our angles, when you're shooting uphill or downhill on the mountain, it is not the same as shooting that downhill out of that tree. When you're shooting out of a tree, you want to aim a little high. Whereas when you're shooting downhill on the mountain, you want to aim low because your arrow is going to fly high.
So these are all little things that takes time, takes experience, and takes opportunities and misses.
Yep.
Your worst, shot can be your best teacher because you go, wait a minute, I was dead on that sucker. I had him, the pin was right where I wanted it, and I shot over him or I shot below him. I have shot below elk, folks. I've done it. And it's my own fault. The angle, the steepness, all this things that you have to factor in seconds. Sometimes the bulls will give you that opportunity. Other times they won't.
Yep.
So that's the way it is. Closing thoughts, Ryan?
I just really appreciate you having on. It's sharing knowledge is, like I said, it's something I love to do, is just sharing knowledge, and just encourage everybody to take a kid, especially a kid, or like someone like you, a disabled veteran that you may not have the chance to get out there and hunt. Take that moment and take them out, because it's an experience that they will never forget.
And I thank you for that. And, you know, on behalf of Hutch on Hunting, just thank you so much. And I wish you and the legacy well as you continue to grow your company. And folks, we're right in the application period for Colorado. This is May 8th. I believe it's the 8th. Let
That
me
Yeah,
check.
March 8th. Yep, we have
Yeah.
until, I think it's the 2nd of
Yeah, the
April. I
second
think.
April. And I said
Yep.
May. It's May 8th. I'm March 8th. And so we're getting towards the middle of the application period. So if you want to apply for a limited tag, for deer tag, sheep, goats, moose, um, antelope, then you need to do it. And give me a call. Reach out to me at hutchonhunting@gmail.com, and I'll set up a 15-minute discovery call with you. We'll talk about units, we'll talk about your goals, and then based on that, you can become a member of the Hutch on Hunting community. So with that, thank you so much. And remember, SaveTheHuntColorado.com. We need your help.
All right, thank you.